Hi guys, Nina Sapala here. How are you? This is a place to talk about spiritual personality typing. Today in the blog I want to talk about something I feel is really important, especially in these changing times. I want to talk about, well, the blog's entitled Who Has an Edge? Thinkers, Feelers, or Thinkers, Thinking Types. And I think there's so much more to that than what the title says. So I want to walk you through thinking and feeling traits. They're the traits that help you make decisions. And like I said, in these changing times, it's uber important that you're connected into these feelings. So I want to look at these feelings from an academic standpoint. I want to discuss the difference between feelings and emotions. And then I want to discuss feelings from the practical, relevant, spiritual, non-physical aspects of how you can look at making decisions, all right? Because I think when you take the spiritual component and layer it with more of a conventional look, you will get access to your true self much more quickly. It's the spiritual component that exponentially helps you with growth. If you want to get to your true self, and that's the truth of who you are, and let your higher self take control of your life, you will get to the who of who you really are much quicker. And I've said this a lot on this channel. If you look at your personality type as a tool, it is only a tool that your soul uses to express itself. So if your personality type is full of fear and doubt and all those fear-based things, anger, jealousy, if it's not on a loving, energetic wavelength, your soul can't communicate, because your soul's not going to go down to the fear and that lower energy. It just can't connect to it. It's too heavy. It can for brief moments to give you a glimpse, but it can't stay there. So that's why people go, oh, I take a step forward and then I have to go back. Well, it's because you're not connecting to that higher level of the soul. And there's nothing wrong with that, because taking a step back are lessons you need to learn about the fears and the unresolved beliefs, thoughts, and feelings that are still deep within you that need to be shed. They need to be let go of. So taking a step backwards is not a bad thing. Nobody ever is constantly moving forward. So we live in a world of polarity, because you can't recognize where you need to go if you're always going forward. Like, you can't. You can't turn right if you don't know what left is. Do you see how that, you can't go up if you don't know what down is. So you have to take those steps back and forward. That's just, we're humans living in a very dualistic world. It's just the law. It's the law of duality. It's a universal law. So, yeah, I want to look at this stuff. So I want the blog to help you look at your feeling and thinking traits from a very academic or, traditional MBI look. Like I said, then we're going to go into your emotions, the difference between emotions and feelings. And then I want to take you and open you up to what this looks like from a spiritual perspective. And you'll see as I go through this, what personality type has an edge, feeler, and thinkers. Let's go through it. Let's start getting the answer to that, okay? So let's start with an academic look at your feelings and thinking traits. So a feeling trait is, now these traits are solely how you make decisions, okay? So keep that's uppermost in your mind. So it's how you make decisions. So a feeling trait is very subjective. You'll make a decision based on your feelings and based on other people's feelings. So you make these decisions. Feelings are connected to values, emotions, beliefs, your thoughts about something, okay, how you think about something, because you are very much concerned about connecting, being harmonistic. You value people's freedoms and individuality. So that's kind of where you sit in this, which is beautiful, right? And it's how you make feelings. A lot of times you do it to please too, because that gives you a note of satisfaction. We're going to look at all those things from a more spiritual perspective as well, because there's a healthy way of doing this, and then there's an unhealthy way of doing it, okay? So now let's look at a thinking trait. So a thinking trait, again, is how you make decisions. It's a much more objective way of making decisions. Thinkers will make decisions based on fact and logic. They don't take someone's personal purview of personal feelings into account. Just not how they work. I am a thinking trait, a dominant thinking trait. And I'm talking about thinking and feelings from a dominant perspective. So it's either a trait that you use the most, your primary trait, or it's a trait that you use second to the most, which is a secondary trait. I call the harmonizing trait, or first trait is what I call your essential self, because that kind of trait kind of rules you. So these are thinking and feeling. I'm speaking of them from these two positions in your personality type, because we all have these traits. It's just where they factor in. So feeling trait for me factors in number 3. So that's my emerging self. So it's something I've been working on for quite some time now, because it's emerging through me. As I've gotten my first 2 traits together, this trait's now emerging. So, but I digressed. So let's look back to, so the thinking trait is objective. It's made by facts, okay? It's logically based. And like I said, it will not take in somebody else's feelings, which can cause issues. Let's face it, both of them can cause issues. Because if you're a logical thinker and somebody's basing all their choices on feelings, people are like, thinkers are like, what the hell? Why are they doing it that way? Can you see where there could be a little bit of tension? And feelers, on the other hand, go, God, they don't think of anybody but their stupid logic or their stupid selves. You know, can you see that, how it goes? And this is another really interesting fact, is that 70% of women have feeling traits. I'm a woman, I don't have a feeling trait that's either primary or secondary. So I think that's interesting, not just because of me, but I think it's interesting that if you look at what a feeling trait is holistically, it is about connection. It is about harmonizing. It's about shared values. It's about connection. It's about individuality. So 75% of women have this trait. God is never random. Divine intelligence is never, ever random, right? So this is a big clue for how we're all supposed to be getting along. Respecting another's values, right? Being more harmonistic, connecting. I'm not saying change yourself to fit in. I'm saying connect. Even if it's different, look at that connection. What are they trying to say? Understand. That's a big one, right? So since I'm going back to feelings, I want to look at something, because I think this is really, really interesting. So I pulled up an article on, you know, how many feeling traits there are. You know, there's something like 4 or 5, and people can't even. And then there's a lot of disparity even in that. People don't even. There's like 4. There's like anger, happiness, fear, and I believe, which was it? Anger, happiness, sadness, fear, and anger. Some say put disgust in that. I'm like, what? Okay, so nobody really has, you know, because scientifically we can't define what a feeling is. Nobody can really define that. Can't define it. Can't define somebody else's feelings. Only they can define their feelings. So here we go. Academia, or I'm just theorizing, so take what you want and leave the rest, please. And this is an exercise I do all the time. If I'm listening to somebody, I put my hand over my heart and I say, you know, does this feel true to me? You're going to get an answer, yes or no. You're going to get a feeling types. You'll get a feeling, yes or no. And if the feeling is good and joyous, keep on listening. If it's not, turn it off. Okay? Just a little tip from me. So, but how many of you really understand that feelings and emotions, they're two different things? Okay? So feelings can be expressed both internally, they're very complex, but they also have an external component. Like when you feel something is cold, or you feel something that's hot, or you feel something that's rough. It's very tactile, right? It's sensual, sensing, and it can be very sensual, right? So feelings have both an external and internal bent, and they say there's 4. Whatevs. And then there's emotions. Now I know Brene Brown is right now doing Atlas of the Heart, I think is her new book. Sorry, I'm getting crazy bit up, I feel like. Atlas of the Heart. And she talks about, I believe she said there's 84 emotions. Let me see. Oh, 87, excuse me. And she's doing a great special on HBO Max. If you haven't watched it, it's excellent. But when we start getting into emotions are very different than feelings in a way that they're all eternalized. They're deep within. And they come from your thinking, hello, your beliefs, your values, right? So, I'm going to see here that I didn't miss anything. And they can also, come from what you desire. Like your feelings will arise from your desires. Or feelings emotions can arise from desires, or emotions can be derived from like what's inspiring you, right? What's motivating you. So emotions are a very complex way we express ourselves. And if you're watching the Brene Brown special, she talks about something I've talked about on the blog, how words have been so massaged and maligned to fit the narrative of the culture, wherever culture you're in, whatever country culture you're in. And here in the United States, I'm in the South, and when I tell my northern friends where I am, they're like, oh my God, like, how do you do, And they have such a different, they use so many different words to describe an area. So it's not only from country to country, it can be, from state to state here in the United States, or I'm sure if like in Canada, from Providence to Providence, in Canada, or again in Australia, wherever you're from, right? Because words have certain meanings that we've assigned to them. And I think we need to start re-looking at words. We need to start expressing words. I think we need to go back to the ancients who used words, because their words were mostly tapping into the spiritual, to the divine essence. And that's how they used words, which I'm going to get into right now, is how we can look at thinking and feeling from a more spiritual aspect. So let's start with feeling first. So what if we relook at feelings as a truth barometer, your truth barometer? They tell your truth if you let them, if you're vulnerable enough to see that truth of you, right? So if they're telling your truth, when you go to make a decision, right? So then the first thing you need to ask yourself during that decision-making process, instead of just jumping into something you already think you know, a value, a belief, do you want to please to get for somebody else? What's your truth? Does the value align with your truth? Or does the value align with an expectation or someone's creation, someone else's creation of who they think you should be? Are you being a pleaser? Is that an ego thing that's in there now? The fear of not being accepted, the fear of not belonging to a community, the fear of not being loved. So just think about that. Like, does that That blows my mind when you think about it. Because if you think of feeling as your own truth barometer, it's a whole different way of looking at it from like an academic or analytic approach, isn't it? Yes, it's subjective. It's subjective to what? So I'm answering the question. It's subjective to what? It's subjective to your truth, to who you really are, to your true self, to your higher self. That's what it's subjective to. But we don't quite get into that from the conventional, perspective. You might have to come back and watch this a couple times. This is really powerful information. It is really, really potent, especially for this time in our history when everything is changing and you need to make changes. You better be making changes based on your truth. I'm just saying. So let's look at, and this is going to be on the blog too, so you can go back to the blog and get further into this too. You can read and take notes and blah, blah, blah. So what about this too? So let's go look at thinking from a spiritual perspective, okay? So what if, this is interesting too. I love it because I'm a thinker, so I'm all into this, right? So what if we started thinking from our higher self? What if we started thinking from our higher self? What if we let our soul self, that higher self, the truth, that is in constant communication with the universe, divine intelligence, God, whatever you want to call it. I call it God, I call it divine intelligence. It's the universal knowing of all there is. It's hard to wrap your mind around that. But what if you could tap into that? And that divine intelligence is giving you the ideas, right? It's helping you think of these ideas, creative, unlimited ideas that turn into thoughts. Thoughts turn into matter, into things. And then they can express externally in the world. The whole basis of The Secret, right? But what if you started thinking with that perspective in mind, and you don't go back and utilize your old way of thinking? This can happen a lot when you do meditation. Or take time for stillness. For me, it's being out in nature, walking, just looking at flowers, just letting everything I know about myself go. I'm no longer Nina. I'm no longer a mom. I'm no longer a woman. All those thoughts, when I think about myself, I try to release them. This is hard for me because I am a thinker. So, thinkers, I'm always busy thinking. But I try to release all those things I think about myself so I can become this open cavern, this open space to let the communication from a divine intelligence in. It's a whole different way of thinking about thinking. So if I think just about from logic, well, everything doesn't stem from logic. As a thinker, I even know that. Not all things stem from logic. That's a truth. That's my truth. And I think anybody on the planet will agree with me. Unless you're a really die-hard thinker, you probably won't. You probably think, oh, no, I can prove anything through science and logic. Okay. And that's good too. I'm not judging that. But I don't believe that's true 1,000% of the time. I just don't believe it's true. That's my belief. Take what's yours, leave the rest, right? Take what's resonating with you. So, why wouldn't you want to tap into that unlimited creativity as you're thinking instead of those old patterns that you've inhaled along the way? You just keep on inhaling and letting go. And it's just, and then I'm like, oh my God, I'm stuck. I keep on sabotaging myself. It's because there's these old patterns of thinking that override everything. Just like the feelings. You're not telling your truth. It's a fear thing. It's fear-based. And that's okay. That's what we're here to learn. We're here to learn to shed those patterns and behaviors. We're here to shed those old ways of believing that you think that are you. They're not you. I'm telling you, you are this beautiful, loving being that's just juiced up with unlimited creativity, unlimited abundance. You have a sacred purpose. Everybody on the planet has a purpose. Large or small, it doesn't matter. It's all part of the fabric of the collective. We're all here as a big tapestry to help each other, to serve each other, to give each other insights, to teach each other, to love each other, to embrace each other. Yes, and to share our differences. It's how we learn. So is this making sense? So if I ask you the question, which trait has the edge, a feeling or thinker, what would you say? What would you say? I think the question you need to look at is, we are all a spark of divine intelligence. We are all equal. No matter our social status, no matter our color, no matter about anything, no matter what clothes we wear, you know, we are all equals. Now, it may not appear that way here on the planet, but if you ask God, God knows who you are. And that's the most important relationship, is that relationship with yourself, that divine spark within that connects you to divine intelligence, that opens you up to co-creating the world that you want. So how do you want to co-create it? Do you want to co-create it from your truth of your feelings? Or do you want to co-create it from a false belief, an untruth, mandated by somebody else's expectations or beliefs about you, or old beliefs about yourself that no longer even suit you? They might have suited you before. They don't now. What's your now truth? And then again, look at your thinking trait. Do you want to keep on using old patterns of thinking? It's a habit. This is what I think. Well, did you even look at that? Did you spend time looking at that thought of what you're thinking? And is it really you? Again, it's like you will, even as a thinker, because thinkers do have emotions. Feelers think. You know, just because we say that, you know, this is a dominant trait doesn't mean the other trait's totally lost. It's not. That's not true. So as I think about things, I need to feel into what feels truthful. What's truthful for me? And as a feeler, you need to think about what your truth is. So you're thinking, you don't want to just keep on thinking back, like, how do I feel about that? Haven't I already done that? That doesn't make me feel good. Why do I want to keep on thinking that old pattern or using that pattern of behavior? So, and I did a couple exercises on the blog too for you, so you can go check those out to help you start this journey. But can you see how, when you think about, I'm a thinker. When you re-see your feeling trait and your thinking trait from a spiritual perspective, how much more in tune you would be with your true self? How much more in tune you would be with who you really are? With who you want to become? Can you see how much quicker that's going to take you there? Instead of just like staying in these old academic heavy ways. Of course they have a purpose, but they're not the sole purpose, and they're not the leading purpose. They're a secondary purpose. Hey, that's in my book. You know, that's my book of thoughts. So I hope you enjoy this. It's very interesting when you start taking apart these traits and looking at them from an academic, conventional look-see. And then you look at it from a spiritual perspective. And if you are on a journey, the spiritual perspective should really excite you, because it's the leading way. It's what should always be leading you. I'll say it again. Your soul communicates through your personality type. So it creates your reality, right? Your soul and your personality creates your reality. If your personality type is fear-based, in anger, jealousy, whatever fear, pick a fear. It's pleasing, it's unhealthy, you know. It's stuck in the matrix of conditioning. I should be this, I should be doing this, you know. And if you don't do this, you feel the shame and fear. You feel unworthy, you know. And that's why a good look at Brene Brown's work, which she's doing right now, will augment this video too, in a big way. But if you're there, your soul self can't express through that. The energy is just, it's too heavy. It can't. I mean, you'll get a glimpse, because it'll fight. It's gonna, like me, like 7-year tsunami smacked me upside my head and said, Nina, you better wake up. Like, what are you doing with your life? I'm like, oh. So I had to learn all this stuff. I had to peel back all those layers, you know, of those false selves of myself. The pleaser. I didn't even have a freaking feeling trait. My feeling trait's tertiary, but I was so out of whack. I was using my second bottom traits as my personality type, which is a false self, right? I wasn't being true to who I was. I was pleasing. I was meeting everybody else's expectations. I was falling in the conditioned matrix of the world, what the world expects of me. I was totally ignoring my true self. I wasn't listening to my higher self. I wasn't listening to my soul. I really wasn't listening to the messages God was trying to, divine intelligence was trying to share with me. Until that 7-year life tsunami happened. It just took me out. It just shut me totally down. It had to come. Speaking of a step backwards, that was a step down off the cliff backwards. Hopefully that won't happen for you. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to, like, kind of wake you up about some things. I'm here to guide you into things so you can come into your true self. You can find yourself. I don't know if finding yourself's the right word, but it's finding the truth of who you are. It's uncovering that. It's exploring that. It's the who of who you really are. It's being yourself. I, for so many years, wasn't being myself. I was being somebody else. I was being what I thought somebody else wanted me to be, so I could be loved, so I could fit in, so I could play the freaking, you know, corporate PR game. I did it all. I'm not gonna ever sit here and talk to you about something I haven't experienced. And as I experience more things, I'll teach you more things, because that's what I'm here to do, right? I'll just share with you what I'm experiencing, because, you know if I'm doing it, someone else out there is doing it too. So, the answer to your question is, do thinkers or feelers have an edge? I think I answered that, but no, one personality type doesn't have an edge over another. Maybe in certain areas they do, but one personality type isn't better than another. No. And if you can see these traits, how they weave together, especially when you get into the spirituality aspects of it, they just weave so together. They're not separate. It's a circle. It's a beautiful circle. Divine intelligence is not random. So, please do like, share, subscribe. If you found this video helpful, I'm so happy, because I know one person that's elevated, that's tapped into their higher self, is more powerful than 1,000,000 that aren't. I want you to get to there. I want you to get there. We need all you right now. We need everybody on the planet to be tapped into their higher self. Because that's what we want the planet to evolve in, to a higher place of living, to a more loving, harmonious, connected, respected place where everything is respected. Plants, animals, people. All right, guys. Do like, share, and subscribe. I'll have a couple short videos on this topic too as we get into the week. Enjoy, and I hope you're enjoying all of my riffs on spiritual personality typing. All for now. Nina.